I'd always heard you should only cross the old Maple Creek Bridge during the day, because at night, there's a woman who shows up there. And she's not alive. That story had been passed around the locals for years, but I never believed it. Until one winter night, at 2:15 a.m., I pulled my car over near that bridge, and she was there. Dressed in white, head bowed, both hands resting on the railing, like she was deep in thought. I figured maybe she was just some local woman, but when my headlights fell directly on her, her feet weren't touching the surface of the bridge at all. In that moment, my chest tightened, and then she slowly lifted her head to look right at me. I kept the engine running, but my hand froze on the gear shift. Her face was hidden in shadow, but there was this faint glimmer in her eyes, locked straight on me. I don't know why, but I felt like she knew me. Slowly, I shifted into reverse, my headlights gliding along with her, yet she didn't move an inch. It was as if someone or something was blocking the way behind me. Just as I got a few feet away from the bridge, a faint scream echoed through the air. But it didn't come from her mouth. It came from inside my car. My heartbeat was pounding so hard my grip on the steering wheel started to slip. I glanced over my shoulder at the back seat. Nothing was there. When I looked back toward the bridge, she was now standing on top of the railing, like she was about to jump. For a second, I thought she was about to take her own life, so I stopped the car. But in the next instant, she floated down from the air and landed directly on the road in front of me. All I could see in my headlights was her white figure. Her feet still weren't touching the ground. And then, she spoke. "You shouldn't go back." Her lips were moving, but the voice came from inside my ears. Like someone was standing right behind me. I pressed the clutch, revved the engine, and sped across the bridge. But the moment I reached the other side, my brakes slammed on by themselves. The car shut off. The headlights flickered, and there she was, sitting on my hood. Head bowed, hair covering her face. Her hand resting on my side mirror. My hands were frozen on the wheel. She slowly lifted her head, and said just one thing. This was only the first road. After she spoke, a low humming sound began to fill my ears. Like someone had turned on a generator inside the car. I tried to twist the ignition, but the key was completely stuck. She was still sitting on the hood, her head tilted slightly to the side, as if watching my every move. I didn't dare take my eyes off her, but in my peripheral vision, I noticed her clothes weren't white anymore. They looked soaked, dripping, as if she had just been pulled out of the water. And on the ground beneath her feet there was no shadow. Then she lifted her hand from the hood and began lightly tapping. With every tap, my rearview mirror showed a faint flash, like headlights blinking far away. I forced myself to look directly into the mirror. And there, in the middle of the bridge, was another car. No one was inside, but its headlights were flickering on and off, almost like it was sending me a signal. I couldn't decide whether to keep watching the woman on my hood, or the strange car in the mirror. That's when the woman dragged her finger across my windshield and began to write. She only wrote 3 words, "Back to your bridge." My breathing quickened. I tried the ignition one more time. This time, the engine roared to life. I slammed the accelerator and sped away. But the moment I hit the highway, my car's GPS turned on by itself. There was no map on the screen, just a single red arrow pointing me in one direction, straight back to Maple Creek Bridge. I tried to shut the GPS off, but the screen began to crack, as if something inside was pressing against it. The cracks formed letters, spelling out, "Only way out." My hands went cold. I was about to take the highway exit when a truck blared its horn behind me. But in that horn was something else. A twisted scream layered in with the sound. When I looked in my mirror, the truck driver's face wasn't clear. Just a blurred, pitch-black shape. And then I understood. The truck wasn't just following me. It was pushing me back toward the bridge. As I slammed on the brakes, my phone started to vibrate. The screen showed an unknown number. I answered, and a single voice spoke. "If you don't come back to the bridge, we'll end you right here." I hung up, gripped the steering wheel tight, and decided I would return to that bridge. But what I didn't know was that what I'd find waiting for me there wouldn't be human. Turning off the highway, I steered back toward Maple Creek. The road was empty, only the sound of my tires and the sharp hiss of cold wind. As the bridge came into view, the air felt heavier than before. This time, there was a single yellow light, the kind you usually see at construction sites. But there was no work happening here. Beneath it sat an old wooden chair, empty. I slowed the car, my headlights sweeping across the center of the bridge. And there was someone standing there. It wasn't the woman from the hood. It was a man with long hair, half-torn coat, and a face so distorted it looked like a photograph that had been crumpled. In both hands, he held something I couldn't make out. But as I drew closer, I realized they were two rusted, antique lanterns, their flames swaying without any wind. He raised the lanterns toward my car, then pointed down toward the darkness on the side of the bridge. I followed his gesture and saw, hanging just below the railing, an old car half submerged in the water below. A cold shiver ripped down my spine. I aimed my headlights at the sunken car, and in the driver's seat sat the woman in white. But this time, her face was visible, and the face was mine. I slammed the brakes hard, but the moment I stopped, someone appeared beside my window. It was her, the woman from the hood. Only now she wasn't in soaked white clothes. She was in a completely black gown, and where her eyes should have been, there were only empty holes. She placed her hand on the glass, and instantly the window turned ice cold. Her voice came again, not from outside, but from inside my head. "Now you understand. This wasn't just a road. It was the time for you to come back." Then everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in my car anymore. I was inside the old, sunken vehicle, water already up to my neck. In the distance, I could see the faint glow of a lantern, and standing in that glow was the distorted-faced man, just watching. The water reached my mouth, and just before my eyes closed, I heard a voice. "Welcome back to the bridge." I was walking toward the burned tent in the woods, when suddenly, from inside the flames, I heard my own voice whisper, "Don't look back. They say there's only one day you can find the path out of this forest, and it's the same day something in here catches fire." Me, Chris, and Tyler had driven hours out of the city to camp in the middle of the Allegheny National Forest in Pennsylvania. The place had a strange reputation. Locals told stories about people disappearing here, and about tents mysteriously catching on fire with no trace of how it started. We usually laughed at stuff like that. I wish we'd laughed this trip off too. The first night was fine. We set up the tent, gathered some firewood, cooked dinner. It was chilly, so we sat by the fire, talking. That's when I felt it, like something was watching us from between the trees. I told myself it was just in my head, until I heard the faint crunch of footsteps in the leaves. When I turned my flashlight in that direction, there was nothing. Chris laughed and said, probably just a raccoon. I didn't reply, but something about the silence in the woods felt wrong. The next morning, Chris and Tyler decided to check out a fishing spot they'd read about. I told them I'd explore a little. There was this old overgrown trail nearby. Locals called it the Old Ranger's Path. It had been closed off years ago, and that made me curious. At first, everything was normal. Sunlight filtered through the trees. Birds chirped. A breeze moved the branches. But the further I walked, the more it changed. The air went completely still. The leaves hung frozen. And every sound vanished. All I could hear was the crunch of my own boots. Then, a smell started to creep in. At first it was faint, like someone was barbecuing in the distance. But within minutes, it was so strong my eyes began to sting. It wasn't just burning fabric, there was this metallic tang to it. Like blood. I followed it. The ground was discolored, blackened in irregular patches, like something had burned here not long ago. And then, through the trees, I saw it. A tent. Or what was left of one. The fabric was charred, the poles half melted. But smoke was still curling up from it, like the fire had gone out only minutes ago. I stepped closer. Around the tent, the dirt was marked with strange, perfect circles carved into the soil, like someone had dragged a knife over and over in the same shape. I was a foot away when I spotted something inside, in the shadows. I shone my flashlight in. And I froze. Sitting in the middle of the scorched tent was me. My own face, burned and blistered, the skin bubbled and peeling. The eyes were nothing but black voids. It smiled at me, and in my own voice, it said, "Don't look back." And my body froze. I told myself this had to be my mind playing tricks on me, but hearing my own voice that close made my stomach drop into my throat. I aimed the flashlight back into the tent, but the figure wasn't there anymore. Just smoke, and that smell of burning fabric still hanging in the air. I didn't want to turn around. But there was this strange pull, like an invisible hand on the back of my neck, trying to twist my head. I squeezed my eyes shut and took a single step back. The faint crunch of footsteps right behind me made my breath stop cold. Someone was standing there. "Tyler?" I called softly. No answer. Then the footsteps began moving toward me. Slow. Even paced. And I just knew whatever this was, it wasn't a person. I opened my eyes and ran. As I darted between the trees, it felt like the whole forest was shifting, trails changing shape around me. I risked a glance over my shoulder, and the spot I just left was no longer the burned tent. It was now a clearing, and in the center, I was standing there. The other me was engulfed in flames, those same black eyes locked on mine, that same twisted smile. It lifted one charred arm, and in its hand was something I recognized instantly, my backpack. The same one I was wearing. My chest tightened. A sudden wind whipped through the trees, pushing the smoke into my face. I coughed, cleared my eyes, and the duplicate was gone. But a new voice came from behind me. "This time, look back, or he'll find you." I couldn't tell if that was a warning, or a threat. My neck turned on its own, like my muscles were under someone else's control. Behind me was only thick forest, but between the branches, two pitch-black eyes stared back. When my flashlight beam hit them, they didn't walk toward me, they floated, drifting closer like they weren't bound by the ground at all. I stepped back, but with each step, the eyes moved closer. Panic surged, and I broke into a run. I thought I was heading toward our campsite, but when I burst through the trees, I was standing right in front of that same burned tent, except now, it looked brand new. The zipper hung open. From inside came the sound of laughter, my own laughter. Slowly, I stepped in and froze. There were 3 sleeping bags. The first was unzipped. Tyler lay inside, but half his face was burned. The second had Jason, eyes wide open and completely black. The third sleeping bag was empty. From behind me, a voice said, "You're late, take your place." I turned. My double stood inches away, but this time his face was perfectly whole. As he smiled, the tent walls erupted into flames. Smoke poured in, choking the air. The last thing I remember was lying in that empty sleeping bag, but my body wasn't mine anymore. Outside, footsteps crunched through the forest, like someone new had just arrived. Then my voice echoed into the night. "Don't look behind you."